Okay, I kind of um, talked a lot about the shamanism in the last video and my ex-teacher, and I didn't say anything about God or Jesus almost. This is because I just came back from listening to some recordings of the shaman, and that's kind of what pushed me over to make a video, because I felt sorry for the people who listened to this crap, that he was telling them, and now let me tell you if I can remember how my conversion happened. If I can remember, I already said one milestone was going to Mexico. Because when I went to Mexico, my girlfriend was Christian, but at the time she was like a backslid Christian. She wasn't strong in her prayer life or anything. So I don't know if she might have been in a worse state than I was. So, but her mother was very, very, very dedicated Christian, and it's quite possible that through the prayers of her mother, this whole thing started. So I went over there, and her mother was praying for me. I didn't mind. I mean, she was like, can I pray for you and whatever? And I was like, sure, whatever. Like I'm in your house, and your daughter's my girlfriend, so I'll just show you. I'll just be respectful. I'm not gonna be like, no, don't pray for me. So I didn't really believe, but she was praying stuff like God has other things for you. This thing that you're doing is it's not really what God wants from you. At the time, I spent all my money, and I purchased a center, which became an ayahuasca center. I don't know what it's called now. It's probably called the Five Elements or something like that, with this guy Javier de Silva. So I bought that land with my money for him to use, and he was going to give me a cut. It's another long story, but basically there was never any cut that he ever gave me, except one time. Anyway, back to my story. So in Mexico, I think is where I got those prayers from her mom, and she gave me I think she gave me a Bible, and she gave me she gave me a Bible. Let's say she gave me a Bible, and she gave me some pamphlets and things like that. Now, normally I wouldn't be interested in reading that. However, because I was in the situation where I was in the jungle, I decided I wasn't going to live with a shaman. I would move to the jungle, because I realized that he was using me and lying to me and all that stuff. So I moved to the jungle. I lived by myself. I did a lot of fasting. I had a lot of free time on my hands. There was absolutely nothing to do most of the day. And I spent my time doing Sudoku puzzles and what else? And chopping firewood, and taking walks, and writing letters to my girlfriend. And then I would read the Bible and read these things that my girlfriend's mom gave me, just because I had so much free time on my hands. Now, I said in the previous video that I'm an artist. However, I couldn't paint the whole year. The whole year that I was, those 8 months that I was with the shaman, I couldn't really work. I made maybe 5, 6 paintings in 8 months, and not even big ones. So I had my art supplies and stuff, but I wasn't into it. I couldn't do it. I had my guitar. I was writing songs, but I had a lot of free time on my hands, as you can imagine. Living in the jungle, there's no electricity. There's nothing to do. Nothing to do. Especially when you're fasting. you're not eating, it's like every minute drags on forever. So that's where I started reading reading the New Testament and some of the pamphlets and things like that my girlfriend's mom gave me. Around like the last month of my time in Peru, several things happened. One is that I saw a vision of Christ in one of the ceremonies. I saw his face and he was looking straight at me, and it did impact me. Like, it impacted me, and I still remember it because I put myself, I started contemplating, because my teacher, the shaman, he was using the name of Christ and the name of the Virgin Mary and things like that in his songs, and he was praying, and he had crosses and little statues and things like that of, I don't know, the Catholic stuff. So I thought, okay, he's got power and he's using this stuff, so this stuff must have power too. So I should give it a chance. Basically, that was my thinking. But in one ceremony, and I don't remember exactly in what context it happened, but Christ just showed up, like his face showed up in front of mine and just looked at me. And I think shortly after that, I had a time in my cell, I don't know, in my little house. I don't know if it was during a fast or not. It might have been during a fast, where a prayer came to me in Russian. And I must have heard this prayer a long time ago when I was a kid. I left Russia, I left Ukraine when I was about 11. And we weren't a religious family, we didn't go much to church or anything. But it was the Jesus prayer, which is, Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner, in Russian. So this prayer came, and I was singing it in my house, and tears started falling, and I was just crying and singing this prayer. I still don't really know where this prayer came from. I don't know where it came from. I don't know if I was exposed to it ever, because, as I say, my family wasn't religious. We hardly ever went to church. I must have heard it somewhere, right? I must have heard it, but I remember just pacing around my room and singing this prayer and crying. Now, a little bit after that, and I think I was crying because I was in such pain, because I was in love with my girlfriend, and I felt like that thing was falling apart, and actually my whole life was falling apart. Like, I just spent all my money to buy this land with this shaman. I left my job, and it seemed like there was no going back. Like, I've crossed over, I crossed over into another mode of existence, and there was no going back, basically, for me. So I felt a lot of agony, I guess. I don't know if it was depression, whatever it was. So there was this tearful prayer, and then shortly after that, I received a message in one of my ceremonies that basically that I was done. Like, I didn't need to do this anymore. I'm done. And after that, I felt like, it was like I renounced shamanism at that point, and I felt very light and very good and everything. But I didn't renounce it completely. I went back and I had more, and nothing much happened. But then I went back, from this kind of a very light feeling of feeling almost like a child, like everything's perfect, and you can look people in the eye, and you can feel normal about yourself. Like, I hadn't felt that feeling for like years and years. I haven't felt that feeling. So it was like that's why I say it's like being a child, because probably the last time I felt that was when I was a child, because I just had lost it. I couldn't look people in the eye. I couldn't feel like everything was fine. I couldn't feel um, light and joyful. So when that feeling came, it was, I had a day. I think I had an entire day of that feeling, like, oh wow, I feel like a child again. I wrote a song about it. It's just basically that everything is fine, and you're just taking a walk in the sun, and you just feel great. And for me, that was a big deal because I hadn't felt that in years. But then I went back and I had another ceremony or 2 ceremonies, and I had another fast with another plant. And as a result, by the time I left, let's say this vision that I don't need anymore, this was like a week or 10 days or 2 weeks before it was time to leave. In those 2 weeks, I went from here like straight down. And I think from there was the next time that the next thing that happened. Basically, the big milestone was me coming to Mexico and me realizing with these people, Jose and Ella from El Refugio. They told me that that there was such a thing as evil. That I hadn't even been aware that there was evil, because I was all this like non-dualism stuff basically. Everything is God, everything is good, even though it's not. But I didn't understand that there was evil, that there were demons, that demons could be living inside me. So when they explained this stuff and they said, yeah, you think I have demons? And Jose said, of course you have demons. You went to all these shamans. You filled yourself with demons. I said, okay, well, maybe let me give it a try. And we basically went through the prayers, and he cast out demons, and I got baptized again. And I just learned today, even though I was baptized in the Russian Orthodox Church, because I went to these shamans and to the gurus and all these things, that's equivalent to renouncing Christ, to rejecting Christ. So I actually did need a second baptism because I've renounced the church by my actions. So right after my baptism, I had another spell of depression and anxiety. I went and I kind of escaped from everybody. I lay down on the ground and I just kind of cried. I felt really bad. And I heard God's voice at that time saying to me, he wants to be miserable, but I'm not gonna let him. That's probably the only time I heard the audible voice of God. There was another occasion, but I'm not going to mention it actually. And from there, I had the opportunity to meet various Christian people, and it's just kind of interesting that now, when I was in my shamanism stuff, in that involvement with the New Age and all that, in all of my life, I was 27 by then. No, I think I was 27. Anyway, in my entire life, I did not have a single friend who was Christian up to that point. I had one girlfriend who was Christian in Korea, and I had my present girlfriend who was Christian, but she was a backsliding Christian. So was the other one. She was also a backsliding Christian. But, I'm not saying that in judgment. They were still Christian. And I believe that they helped me to get to Christ. But basically, my life has gone from, in 10 years, from having no Christian friends at all, apart from these two girlfriends, to having kind of being surrounded by Christian people. Like everybody, not everybody, but most of the people I talk to now are Christian. Um, and I got to meet some pastors. I got to meet some a high-ranking Russian Orthodox priest who was really like filled with the Holy Spirit. Now he's the head of the church in Jerusalem. I met him in France. At first I was in the, let's say, the messianic kind of thing that Jose and Ella was teaching, and then I went into the different kind of Pentecostal stuff like Sid Roth and learning about churches, but I could never find like a church that I really felt like I belonged in. And then I slowly started coming back to Orthodoxy, to Russian Orthodox, and learning all about lives of saints and the teachings. And that's where actually I find the most satisfaction. I find that a lot of the Protestant sermons and pastors and stuff like that, like they interest me for about a day. I listen to their stuff. I listen to it for about a day, and it's interesting, whatever. And then it kind of loses the interest. Like it dries out, sort of thing. At least for me. And the Russian Orthodox doesn't dry out. Like I can listen to that. I've been listening to that for like years and years, and I'm still interested. So I guess my computer battery is going to run out. I don't know if I should say, anyway. I'm not going to say anything else. I'll leave this open for questions, and if you feel like it, check out my book, Shamans and Healers. That's my kind of testimony of coming from shamanism to Christ. I think it's interesting. It's well written. It's kind of naive, maybe. It was written like 10 years ago. And the second book is called Walk in the Light. That's more Christian, but it's also a little bit naive because I was just like a brand new Christian. But I open an invitation. Feel free to read them, pass them on, and if you got any questions, just leave me a comment. And God bless you.